Get me out of here! Someone let me out of here! Don't close the door!
Okay guys, welcome to the first of our Flytrap snaps. Flysnaps. Flytraps, if you will. These are going to be little segments that we do on a more frequent basis than our Brotherhood of the Fly episodes. And rather than being, you know, the mega hour and a half minus the 40 minutes odd that I've somehow deleted during the editing process, these are going to be sort of much more shorter, faster, more condensed episodes. So please forgive us for rambling on for the last 28 minutes about nothing.
Well, this is the second time we've done this.
This is the second time. We had a kick-ass episode in the can the other day. But yeah, I cocked that one up with the audio settings. We could hear Jonathan talking to himself, and I was doing a lot of lip syncing, but it was a very one-sided conversation, Jonathan.
You could have ADR'd your whole thing.
I could have.
That would be exciting.
But so yeah, the Flytrap snaps are going to be little focused discussions with regards to certain aspects of the industry we belong to. Today's one's going to be on sculpting materials, epoxy putties and polymer putties, polymer clays, to cut it actually short. Just going to go over some of the products that we use, the reason why we use them, and the benefits, disadvantages, and advantages. Obviously, later on down the track, we're going to be covering other topics. We hope to be doing mold making, either vulcanizing or RTV silicon mold making, casting, white metal, pewter, and resin casting. You know, be it using a spin caster or gravity feed. Then we've got a whole lot of other things, sculpting tools, and a whole lot of other things. So this is just a bit of a on-the-fly episode that we're doing today, and I hope you find it informative, and hope you're still with us even after this 30-minute introduction.
You're going to show us the equipment at one point?
Yeah, well, you want to see Flytrap's plant?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, hey, if people want to see that, just give them a throw it in the comments. If there's anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to have us covered, throw it in the comments, guys, at the bottom of the YouTube video.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see, some factory foods.
Well, hey, I've got it all here. I can do that easy. But I need to know what people are after. You know, they have to ask the questions. They have to tell me what they want to see, and then we'll give it to them.
Right.
But if you don't mind, Jonathan, I'll kick us off and explain some of the more...
I don't mind at all, man. You make a good host. You're doing a fine job.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, sir. Myself here at Flytrap, the number one material I've used ever since day one of my sculpting career is milliput. I briefly covered this in the previous discussion, but
You just called green stuff milliput.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I mean green stuff. Green stuff or needetite. I get it from Silmaster in the UK. I think it's about $15 a reel. There's about 2 meters of reel, I think, off the top of my head in that. So basically, your yellow and blue mixed together. You know, two different coloured strands mixed together makes green. You do get a bit of solidification along the centre line of your strip, but with a scalpel and a bit of care, it's easy to remove. And then, you know, Bob's your uncle. Just mix the stuff together. You can mix it 50-50. I tend to use it 50-50, in which case you get that nice even green colour. If you add a bit more blue, I think the blue's the catalyst, you're going to have a product which cures a lot faster. It will be a darker tone, sort of more bluey than green. And it tends to, you know, cure a little harder as well. Likewise, in saying that, if you add a bit more yellow to the mix, which is hard not to do sometimes because you tend to get a lot more yellow than what you do blue in the thread, you'll end up with a much lighter green end result. It tends to remain pliable for a lot longer, so you can work it longer, and it has a generally softer sort of feel to the end result. Now, green stuff, I generally sculpt with in layers, and the reason for that is you've got anywhere between 1 to 2 hours of work time, depending on the sort of the mix ratio that you use. It's fantastic stuff for what we use, for what we use it for, because within the space of a day, you sculpt the product, you've cured the product, you can then put it straight to mold making side of business. Because we vulcanize all of our molds for white metal casting. Green stuff's ideal because it withstands the vulcanizing process, which is heated it's heating and sandwiching that green master model at about 300 degrees Fahrenheit off the top of my head, and our vulcanizer, which is in fact a 50-ton press with 2 heated platens which basically sandwich it together. 9 times out of 10 you're going to get some form of damage to that green master model, that green sculpt. Sometimes it's completely ruined in the process. Sometimes it comes out perfectly fine. Sometimes it just needs a bit of minor repair and you've got that master back to its original state. But when you consider the heat and the pressure that's under for a period of an hour or so, it's only natural that you're going to get something. Don't be surprised if something falls off it. An arm or a weapon or his head or
Just rewind a little bit, Mr. Tangent Man. You're talking about mixing a little more blue, a little more green. Do you use that technique a lot? If you're like for certain shapes that you're going for, if you're sculpting clothing or if you're sculpting weapons, do you add a little more blue, a little more yellow? What is your?
No, I use pure 50-50.
Just go 50-50 all the time?
I use 50-50 all the time, Jonathan. The reason for that is more a superficial requirement than anything else. It photographs nicer.
Right.
Green stuff at the best of times does not photograph the best. It's got a real glossy finish to it, a glossy sheen, which is always picked up in photographs. I try and keep it as matte as possible and single tone as possible. Pick up all the nice creases, the shadows. Can I just get you to sit a little to your left, Jonathan? Yeah, cheers, mate. Don't want you cut off by my ugly mug. It gives a much sort of overall nice even feel to that final photograph, and obviously in this game where a lot of my work is commission work, you want those photographs of that final product for the client looking as shipshape as possible. I don't like different variants of the green looking all higgledy-piggledy and jigsaw, because sculpting in a product that doesn't look good even when sculpted beautifully, you want to give it every possible chance so that your client sees the product and they're happy with it, and then once they've got that product in their hands, it's going to look 10 times better than it does in the photograph anyway, because greens just don't photograph well. A short answer, mate, I use 50-50 blend, which is why when I run out of a 2 meter band, I've always got a big lumpy yellow left, because they never give you enough blue. So Silmaster, get your shit together.
Do you think there's any timing difference? Like, does it cure faster with more blue?
Yeah, it does. It cures faster with more blue. I think the blue is the catalyst and the green is the actual epoxy, the resin.
So the more blue you add, the less time you have, huh?
Yes, don't quote me on that, mate. Because I use a 50-50, I'm not 100% sure.
In our last conversation, we kind of forgot to discuss putty ovens. You don't use a can, like an oven?
No, but I'll get you to show us your one if we can sometime in this episode.
I can show you right now.
Oh, okay. Oh, look at that.
Standard putty oven made out of a paint can.
Look at that. It's like a little house from Little Men's.
It's very warm in there. It's a sauna.
What sort of temperatures are you achieving in there?
It gets 120. I actually use this little...
Oh, you got a thermometer for it? Yeah, cool.
Yeah. If it gets any hotter than 120, you could get some funky bubbles, and it kind of browns the green stuff too. So I try to avoid that. So
that's the same thing that happens in the vulcanizing process. You get that heat, and the rubber sort of giving it a taint gives it that sort of darker end result.
Right. And also, I've noticed even if you're using 50-50 green stuff mix,
it'll go off color. You can tell it's been,
if you've got a little bit of dirt on your finger, or if you've been messing around with the fireplace, you got some soot on the thumb.
Yeah,
it's going to make it darker. And even if once you've added it to the piece, there's going to be that little spot of dirty green stuff. It doesn't bother me. I don't really care. Most times I'm I keep a rag with like alcohol just to keep hand oils down. But,
Yeah. No, nice. I use a halogen lamp generally, mate. If I need to speed cure my items, I've just got a little halogen lamp that I just put straight on top of the figure with a gap of about that much.
and that's plenty of heat to
Yeah,
get.
that's totally. Halogen lamps heat it up nicely. So
With this oven though, I could cure things to a hard enough surface to go to the next layer
yeah,
in 20 minutes. It's pretty much hard.
that's cool. Because that's my best advice for sculpting with Neatertite, with green stuff, is do it in layers, because you do have that limited time frame to sort of manipulate the product.
Right.
Do it in layers. You have your armature made out of wire, and you start with the basic anatomy, the musculature. And I always start from the feet up. So, the first thing I do is the feet. Even though there's going to be boots and stuff on this, I'll still sculpt the feet with the toes and the toenails. Then, up to the ankles, into the calf muscles, up into the quads, the glutes, everything else working up through the midriff, torso, and finally the head. Arms always come on last for me. That's why you see a lot of my photographs have figures without arms, because arms are always the last stage. And most of the time I like to cast them separately. So
The arms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in saying that too, green stuff is what I predominantly use. I use it for most of my commission work.
I also want to mention one thing. Sorry to cut you off, but I don't want to forget. I talked about speeding up the process of curing your sculpts faster.
Yep.
But also slowing it down. If you throw it in the freezer, you've got hours. I mean, I've come back nearly a day later and warm it up and soften it up, and it's ready to go.
Oh man, I don't generally have figures last that long. I don't have to. I try my best to do everything in sort of the one sitting. I have my stages, but I won't leave a stage half finished.
It's partly because I'm frugal. I don't want to waste one tiny bit of green stuff.
Well, it pays to, mate. It pays to be that way. It can, it can be the cheapest of professions, but it can also be one of the, not the most expensive, but it can be expensive as well. All putties, whether in use or not in use, should be stored in the refrigerator. Keep cool all the time, or prolong the life, especially on some of the putties that I come on to discuss shortly. But Neatertite's no different. Keep it in the fridge when it's not being used. Now, which moves me on to the next most common product you'll find me using in any of my sculptures. Is milliput. Now, this is just a standard yellow-grey milliput. Generally sourced also in the UK, but I've got a local supply here. He's been pretty good, but if he says if this product's fresh, I'd hate to see what he calls off, because it comes with a skin, and I won't go into the details.
It's pretty funky stuff.
I'm just moaning and being a bitch, so I'll just shut up and carry on with this talk. I use the Neatertite and the milliput as a 50-50 blend. That's my secret recipe. Milliput sets rock hard. It's another epoxy putty. Again, part A, part B. Again, cures by itself when mixed properly. Make sure you mix it properly. I always use a 50-50 blend with milliput. It can be sanded, filed, shaved, cut, and it's perfect for straight edge sculpting. Whereas the Neatertite is not so good for the straight edge, but it's absolutely excellent for organic sculpture. Now, combining the two into a 50-50, so you'll have 2 parts of the Neatertite and 2 parts of the milliput. So you've actually got a 4-part 50-50 mix. You'll then get the benefit of both. You'll have the pliability for organic sculpture that you get with the Neatertite. You'll also get the rigidity and the suitability for hard edge sculpture with the milliput. So if you haven't tried that, give it a go.
Not only that, it blends way,
it's beautiful.
Way better.
It still gives you that green, but it has a slight yellow tinge to it. For examples, have a look at the Flytrap Facebook page.
I've got a few right here in front of me that are a little less than 50-50. There's a little bit more left to milliput. It's still green.
Yeah, you see that yellow tinge in it too. You definitely tell that that's a 50-50 blend. Nice. Yeah. So it's got a nice hard, shiny surface to it.
And this orc has some pouches and stuff. Like there's a.
Awesome. You gotta love the orcs, mate.
I'm just doing it. This is how I prevent wastage. I just put extra stuff on.
You stow it. Yes, I love throwing the baggage, the stowage, all that sort of stuff. So,
but where it's greener is just like a straight green stuff, and then some other places it's a lot lighter. That little pouch right there.
Yeah,
It's got a lot more milliput in it. And I'm a convert to the milliput mix.
it's awesome. I
I
mean,
knew about it for weapons. I'd been doing kind of weapons and like blades and stuff like that with it, but you got me sculpting everything in it.
sculpt everything in it.
It's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's awesome, and it just gives you the ability to sculpt stuff that you just otherwise. I mean, you can always achieve it with the green stuff. It just takes a lot longer, a lot more working.
Yeah.
And for the same amount of working time, when you have that 50-50 blend, you've still got roughly the same amount of time. I find that when you apply heat to it, with that milliput mix, it cures a lot faster.
Yeah.
When you apply heat. Like, I can stick a pure needle-tight figure under the halogen lamp, and it might be cured hard in sort of an hour. I stick the same figure done in milliput and needle-tight, 50-50 blend, and that could be hard enough to handle without leaving an imprint or damaging the sculpt in 25 minutes.
Yep.
So it's definitely awesome. But I'll use this blend on some of my larger items. Generally not commission work, just because people know what they get when it's with needle-tight. It's a fail-safe. It just works wonderfully all the time. The Perry twins have used it since day dot. Brian Nelson uses it. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, mate. But milliput is there also as a suitable mix. I'll use milliput also by itself for certain things. Weapons, the masters of weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And other sort of vehicles. If I'm sculpting vehicles the traditional way, sort of starting with the boxes and cutting, filing, shaving, sanding down, whittling the final master of a 1/100 scale vehicle, I'll do it in pure milliput.
Well, really go into that for a second, if you could. Just the Humvees that you've done. It really is like it's more like you've whittled them.
Yeah.
It's more a carving.
Yeah.
Than an actual sculpting. Did you cure a ball of milliput and just start?
The vehicles that I've made for Warfighter, our 15mm modern range of vehicles and infantry, the majority of them is done with the pure milliput blend. Now that's the Fuchsias for the Germans and the Humvees for the Americans that I've done. I'll start with you've got to get yourself the blueprints. I've got books and books full of blueprints from sort of World War One right up to modern day stuff. So you need those exact measurements. Because I'm working 15mm, I translate everything to 1/100 scale. So once you've got those measurements and you know what scale you're going to be operating at, you do a few calculations, bang, you start redrawing the illustration, and using the photocopier and a few magic tricks, you'll get yourself a blueprint at the scale that you need to be sculpting this vehicle at. I'll then form a box. That box will be 100% milliput box. The sort of rectangular shape of it, the basic shape, at the correct dimensions. And then it's just a matter of sanding. Different kinds, different grades of sandpaper. I have about 5 different grades that I use. Starting with obviously the very rough to sort of carve out your nice sharp angles, then progressively getting finer and finer and finer until once you've at that point when you've got all the proper shapes in. Because I use a mechanical pencil to mark out all the outlines, all the sort of surfaces, the shapes that I've got to file or sand or cut, and using a scalpel, just very, very carefully scalping my way through it. I learnt the technique from Evan Allen when I was working at Battlefront. He's a master of it. His stuff, is beautiful.
He sculpted a lot of the tanks.
The entire range.
For Flames of War?
Yeah, the entire range, apart from a few that I did in the early war range. He did by hand using a Stanley blade. I was just looking for mine, but I can't seem to find it in my mess. And the same technique. It's just time and patience. The beauty with milliput is if you make a mistake, you can just sort of etch some keys in it and then stick another layer on, wait for it to cure, and then you're back in action. So it's just a process of reduction, addition, reduction, addition, and about a week later, which is it took me a week to sculpt those Humvees.
How many did you do at one time?
One.
Oh, you just did one at a time?
Yeah, whereas if I'm doing organic sculpture, like figures, infantry, that sort of stuff, I'll have a series that I'll work on in the process. when I'm doing vehicles, it's a different discipline because it's not additional sculpting like I do with the figures. It's more subtractional. So again, to me, it feels a bit. It is a different discipline, different skill set totally, and it requires for me, it requires a great deal more focus. But that's milliput, yeah. So that's my process for making 1/100 scale vehicles. Everything's done with milliput, or occasionally plasticard, like on the fuchsias, the TPZ fuchsias. There's a bit of plasticard on those, and sometimes there's even just plain old green stuff if there's some detail there that I can get away with. But you end up with a pretty nice result. I mean, a lot of people are going digital these days, and you just can't beat the sterile nature of a computer print. You can achieve wonderful things. But for me, with the vehicles, I like that sort of sense of robustness, that sense of battlefield wear and tear, and I just find that traditional means of sculpting, I can achieve that better than what I can do with a computer, and sort of in the same time frame.
Any vehicles in the future planned up?
Oh yeah, there's lots. There are lots of vehicles I've planned, but it's just a matter of time because obviously a week to do a vehicle is a big chunk out of my commission time, and also the development of my other lines. So it's only when I do have that spare amount of time that I can really push forward and develop them.
Right on, man.
So yeah, man. So that's milliput. Okay. Next up. Sorry, I was just off on a bit of a tangent there, Jonathan. I've got Procreate around here. I want to talk a bit about Procreate.
Procreate Putty.
Procreate Putty.
I'll give my experience with Procreate. I got one package of it, and it was kind of not fresh. The stuff is hard as a rock, so I don't use it.
Who'd you buy it from?
I got it from. I don't want to say.
Okay.
I don't want anybody to not go through them because they're good people.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Sorry, mate. I just found my Stanley knife.
Nice. Hey, look at mine. Look at this DeWalt.
Ooh, fancy stuff. This thing here is my vehicle maker. It's not one of the retractable ones,
right?
Because if you're whittling a bit of milliput,
you don't want it moving.
You don't want it moving or slipping or cutting yourself or anything. It's a fixed blade, and you've got to constantly change the blades. So I've got packets of thousands of blades here, so I'm not going to run out anytime soon. I seem to have misplaced my Procreate.
This one holds pretty steady, but I actually, with my old knife, when I've done my own whittling jobs, I actually just jammed a bunch of green stuff into the blade to hold it steady. And it works.
Again, green stuff is wonderful.
It'll fix anything.
Here it is. Here, Procreate.
Yeah, I didn't get it in that package either. I got it in a much different looking package.
Okay, there are a number of sources online you can buy this stuff from. About 3 or 4 years ago, this was like all the rave. Whereas traditional sculptors have been using Neatertite up until that point. Along comes Procreate, and it's a whiting dark grey A&B epoxy. A lot of very similar properties to green stuff. Only it tends to dry or cure a lot harder. And I've found that it files and sands a lot easier as well, gives a nicer, shinier end result. A number of sculptors of note you have used this over the years. Patrick Keith, one of them, from Bombshell Miniatures. I think he was the first person I saw using the Procreate, which sort of put the light on in my brain to acquire something and give it a go. It's great stuff. Obviously, I've got a lot of green stuff that I use. It's my favourite, but Procreate has a definite place in my tool arsenal, and I've got nothing but good things to say about it. I've never had a bad batch, but then again, I don't know, mate. There's the actual proper Procreate comes like that in these two separate packs. So
it says
was
Procreate.
Your stuff, was it labelled Procreate?
Yep.
Because you can get the grey stuff as well. Like that Gale Force 9 stuff, and it looks like Procreate when blended, but it's not. Procreate's a far superior product.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have it. Oh, here we go. Get out of the drawer, you bastard. Here we go. Yeah, it says Procreate.
Oh, yeah, but you open the pack and you've got these, haven't you, inside it?
No, they're just They were kind of separated like green stuff, but I put them in sandwich bags to keep them separate. But they're 2 tubes.
Yeah.
But they didn't have anything like that around them.
Just a different style of inner packaging.
Maybe it was opened by somebody before because it kind of looked like it had been tampered with.
Maybe they just sent you the store copy, mate.
Yeah, I won't say who I ordered it from.
Well, you can if you want.
Needless to say, I don't order anything from them anymore.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I will in the future.
Jumping from Procreate, guys, I've talked about green stuff. This is brown stuff. Brown stuff is, I think it's the same family as the Neatatite, only it's a brown and white mix, which gives you a nice chocolate brown. Looks like shit. End result. Has a lot of similar properties to green stuff, but cures a lot harder again. Files and sands a lot better. Actually, it's probably more similar to the Procreate than I find the green stuff. It's great for armor, weapons. Sean Harrison, you've probably seen his work for Privateer Press. He uses a lot of this sort of stuff for his 15mm items that he's been doing for Clear Horizon. It just gives a really nice sharp edge for hard surface sculpture, or if you want to put a bit of armor on a 15mm figure, and just you need that organic and hard edge sort of comparison and definition. This is good stuff. So that's brown stuff. Then you got the blue stuff. Now I think I was given that during my time at Battlefront. I've never actually used it. It's a dark blue and white strip. I wouldn't have the first clue how it turns out. So I have to take a rain check on my my personal opinion on the blue stuff.
I've never even heard of blue stuff.
I'd never heard of it either, but it's probably not even called blue stuff. But it's blue and it's white, so mixing together, I guess, is blue. So blue stuff.
Blue stuff.
It could be total shit for all I know, mate. But I'll give it a go and report back my findings.
Would you say that Procreate is as sticky as green stuff?
No, it's not. It's sticky, but not as sticky as green stuff. I mean, green stuff's like blue chewing gum, and it can be like like blue tack. But of all the materials I've ever sculpted in, from margarine to clay to mud to monster clay and chiffon, the green stuff is the stuff I use the most. Which
I remember the very first time I ever used green stuff at all. The first time I ever mixed the green or the blue and yellow together. I didn't have any water for my tools. I didn't have any tools. I didn't even know. I was just like, "What is this useless shit?" It was all over my fingers. When you first mix it, it could be really soft.
Yeah. It's not a user-friendly product to learn by any stretch of the imagination.
Scraping it off of my fingers with tools. Like, what is this?
Yeah, the key.
Can you make fingers with this?
The key, guys, when using tools sculpting with green stuff, is keep your tools wet all the time. I'd say have a little vial of water or a little tray of water that you can continuously dip your tools in, or you can adopt bad habits like mine and lick your tools. I don't advise it. I can't be held responsible for any abnormal growths you will develop.
I advise it. I don't care what happens. Lick your tools. It's fine.
Harold, your third testicle, not my fault. Okay, so you can lick your tools. I've been doing it for 10 years, and other than the myriad of health issues I have, I've been fine. Yet, I better edit that part in case the life insurance policy you guys get a hang of it, eh? So yeah, keep your tools wet.
Do you use any kind of lubrication?
You can. Everyone's favourite lubricant, KY jelly, works wonders with a lot of these epoxy putties, especially KY mixed with a bit of isopropyl alcohol. You'll find that as it tacks up, it can become quite unpliable. It takes on a character of its own. It doesn't like to be told what to do. So it's kind of like a woman in that sense. But a bit of isopropyl alcohol, get a bit of alcohol in there, and she'll lay down for you, Jonathan. She'll do what you want her to do. That's what alcohol fixes everything, mate.
It makes her nice and smooth.
Makes it very smooth, but a bit wet.
So that's the trick. That when you're
working with the green stuff, the neatatite,
when it's too hard,
treat it good. bit
When
of,
it's too hard, you got to rub a little bit of the
bit
KY.
of lubricant. And if that doesn't work, bit of alcohol.
So
Or
alcohol,
both.
lubricant.
Alcohol and lubricant works a treat.
We know what we're doing, dude.
We do. Well, it's been a while. But anyway, enough of that. Look, you're sending me off into an area I really shouldn't be going on our first Flytrap Snap episode.
Yep.
Just quickly, a couple of other notable mentions from the world of non-epoxy putties. Beast Putty #1. Got this stuff a couple of weeks ago. Been trying it ever since. It's a type of polymer, I think, but it's like a plastic putty. This is kind of an odd one. It's been specifically developed by a guy in Germany. It's Stefan, I think his name is. It's a wonderful product. It cures in the oven, so it won't cure in the air. It's not room temperature curing. So you actually have to bake it at about 110 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes. Don't quote me on that, I'll confirm that. But the couple of sculptures I've done, I did a Clone War Trooper from Star Wars Clone Wars, 28mm, and I did a small 18mm Barbarian.
You got pictures of that on your Facebook?
Yeah,
right?
I do. They're all up on Flytrap Facebook page. It came out wonderful. I'm not sure, I haven't yet explored the putty to its full potential, but I'm going to be working with it a lot more over the next, over the coming months.
Have you tried its filing abilities?
Once it's cured, it can file nicely. Files, it sands, it shaves, it comes up beautiful. You can get a nice polish on it.
Nice.
The Clone Trooper armor came up beautifully after it had been cured in the oven. And I just spent a bit of time with a scalpel blade, very sharp scalpel blade, and some fine grit sandpaper. Came up beautifully. So yeah, Beast Putty. So far, no problem. I had some serious concerns with it because obviously vulcanizing my own molds. I didn't know how this stuff was going to react to the heat and the pressure of that. But when it's cured properly, if you're using low temp silicon molds, silicon rubber, it vulcanizes beautifully. So jumping off Beast Putty, I just quickly like to talk about this other product. It's it's like, well, there's a couple of different putties I've used over the years that we haven't discussed. Chavant being one of them. Chavant's a real artist clay. It's an oil-based clay. You see it predominantly used in the special effects industry. It was during time at Weta that I first sort of discovered Chavant. It comes in different grades. You have this the easy, pliable, soft stuff, right up to the very hard versions which require a crock pot to sort of melt it down. A very nice clay, beautiful for large-scale sculpture or prosthetic sculpture. Any sort of SFX sculpture, it's wonderful stuff. It tends to be a bit more expensive, actually quite a bit more expensive, but it is, for what it's used for, you can't sort of beat it. The guys at Weta use a blend of it that I was gifted some by Sir Richard Tower before I left. I still have some here to this day, but it's a bit precious to me, so I'll use my crap before I touch the material of the gods.
And that's a non-curing clay, right?
Yeah, it doesn't cure. So as long as you have to keep that sculpt. I mean, it will firm up in the cold, so you can go back and rework it. But if you smear your hands over it, you're going to get thumbprints and deformities and all sorts of stuff. But it's cure enough. It will, when cool enough, you can handle it confidently without damaging it to a certain extent. I wouldn't advise it though, especially if you just spend 4 months sculpting something. And it's time to mold it. But again, it comes down to you're molding it obviously with RTV silicon rubber. As long as you get that good mold, that good cavity, 9 times out of 10 you're going to ruin that master pulling it back out of the mold. So make sure you're using pressure pots and all that sort of equipment when mold making it with it. And we can discuss this in the future episode anyway. The proper molding and casting procedures.
Yeah.
As long as you get those cavities and that first good resin pour, you've got your master and it's all good. Now, moving from Chavant, I'd like to talk about Monster Clay. Now, Monster Clay looks like dog's breakfast after he's sort of half digested it and thrown it back up on your front porch. Very much like Chavant, a lot more easy to work than the hard versions of Chavant that I've used. it's quite a soft material, especially when it's got a bit of warmth to it. So you rub it in your fingers, and your temperature, your natural body temperature will heat the product up and make it very pliable. I've got again more examples of some small sort of 20 to 28 mil sculptures that I've done using Monster Clay on the Flytrap Factory Facebook page. Have a look if you want. You can achieve some beautiful crisp detail at very fine scales. So yeah, it's another favourite, Monster Clay.
And another non-curing
Just one
clay.
sec, mate. Just one sec. I'm going to be a little bit longer. We had a late start. So yeah, and I'll just edit that part out, mate.
Right,
so
cool.
Monster Clay, good stuff. I highly recommend it for those who aren't phased by a non-setting, non-curing material. So yeah, from there, the only other polymer clays that I've used to any sort of extent would be Super Sculpey Firm. I love Super Sculpey. Use it for a lot of stuff. I love this sort of soft end result that you can achieve with it. My only drama with Super Sculpey, and it's probably not with Super Sculpey, it's just with the ovens that we've used, is to date I haven't been able to oven cure, because Sculpey cures it with the use of an oven. I've never been able to cure perfectly a Super Sculpey miniature. I always get burnt tips, the peripherals, the thin bits like the fingertips and the wisps of hair and things like that, always get that sort of burnt tinge to it.
Yeah, if you watch a lot of artists that use Sculpey, and they make sculptures, with the intention of never painting them. They use kind of like the skin tone of the Sculpey, and they'll put blush on the cheeks, mostly like little dolls and shit. They have to make a heat shield inside the oven, so they don't have, because you'll burn the tips of the ears. You'll get a little brown action going on. So maybe you just need to build some like little, for when you're making dolls.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I made
dolls.
I made the mistake too of using tinfoil to bulk up my armature that I was sculpting with the Super Sculpey over, and I think the tin inside the tinfoil armature got super hot.
Yep.
So probably accelerated the curing process, and
it helps the curing process if you
I think it overhelped the curing process. It's like fucking nuked it. Yeah. And so end of that sculpture.
I've had even miniatures that I've done in polymer have cracked in the microwave. So I cure them I have a microwave with a toaster oven setting, and in 8 minutes I could cure Fimo or any polymer clay.
Yeah.
Cure it to hard in 8 minutes, 10 minutes. It's good shit.
Nice. Tell me about the Euro, mate.
Oh yeah, Euro clay.
Because you got that gifted to you, didn't you? Your first troll.
Yeah, Andrew May.
Is he Statuesque Miniatures?
Meridian.
Meridian.
Yeah,
beautiful work.
Yeah, really good. And he does it all with a polymer clay called Euro.
So he sent you over a free batch to try?
Yeah, he was a nice enough guy to just send me some. I don't have the package, but
dude, that's awesome, man.
He's a good guy.
You got to love the guys in this industry who will, go that bit further to help out the budding, the new up and coming. So
that's how we became friends. I was just bothering you about techniques, and then.
Well, yeah. No, I get a few private messages from time to time.
But you didn't send me any free clay. This guy sent me some free clay.
I'm sending you free miniatures, man. What are you bitching about?
This is it. It is green, so it's a lot like green stuff. My greens are green, though they're not green stuff. And it's pretty much the same qualities as Fimo or Super Sculpey. Also, have you ever tried? You said Sculpey Firm, right?
Yeah, Super Sculpey Firm. Yep.
If you mix Super Sculpey with Sculpey Firm, you get a really nice polymer, but better for bigger kind of things. The Euro is good for miniatures because it's sticky. It's a lot more like green stuff. It's kind of a more waxy. It has a kind of the green stuff rubberiness to it than a lot of other polymers have.
Okay, so hold on, just one sec. Super Sculpey I've used the pink version. The only problem I've had with that was slightly translucent. But the Super Sculpey Firm, the Sculpey Firm, I found was quite a different monster. But you can actually, I didn't think to blend it too to achieve a different result.
Sculpey Firm it's really hard. It could be almost hard to get it going, you got to knead it a lot.
Yeah,
And what
it's like
I
Chevron
found
clay in that aspect. That's some of the hardest stuff.
I just kind of dip my fingers in Vaseline and knead a little bit of Vaseline into the Sculpey firm, and it softens it up and makes it a little more sticky, so it'll stick to the sculpture and it doesn't change the firmness of the sculpting process itself. But I like polymers. The main reason that I have kind of gone towards polymers is because the time. I've got a baby, and I'm a stay-at-home dad, and sometimes my sculpting time can be cut short at a moment's notice. And he's got this like spidey sense that he knows right when I've mixed blue and green, or the blue and yellow together for green stuff, he knows that's when it's time to freak out. And I've got to throw the ball of green stuff in the freezer.
Yeah.
It's So I know when I have to
polymers are much more family friendly.
Yeah, it's way better with your time. You have to budget your time when you're working with green stuff, and also it changes its properties after 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes, it's a different material.
Yeah,
it's a little harder. And polymers, you don't have that. It's already mixed, ready to go.
Yeah,
it's always the same color, and it gives you can do not so much hard edge for the things when I'm sculpting with it and I go for a hard edge. I will mix a little bit of green stuff in with the polymer.
And milliput?
Yep.
Beautiful.
All together, you'll have 5 different parts to a mix, but it's awesome.
So your little heat oven there,
mm-hmm.
No good for the polymer, is it?
No, I think if I left a piece in there all night long, it would probably
you might
harden
get that result.
But it won't go all the way. If you bake polymer just a little, if you half-ass the bake, it turns crumbly.
Yeah,
and it'll be really weak. It goes from soft and pliable. You needed enough heat to get it to its full hardness.
Yeah, just ruin the sculpture.
And I think even in my toaster oven, when I'm working on a piece, I'll run them for 8 to 12 minutes, depending on how thick the clay is. And it's probably not enough for its full. It could probably go harder if I take it upstairs and put it in the kitchen oven, and a little bit hotter for a full 15 minutes.
Nice.
But I haven't really taken that chance.
Okay, you can sort of superheat up the milliput to make it go really hard. Which actually reminds me, just before I forget, I forgot to mention like one of the main epoxy putties that I use. It'd be Aves Epoxy Sculpt.
Yeah.
Part A, Part B. This is the brown stuff. The natural colour is my preferred favourite, but it's decisively difficult to get this stuff in New Zealand. And you have to pay exorbitant rates to get it from Australia or the States. I think this set here, don't quote me on it, but this is something like $170 off the top of my head, New Zealand.
That's crazy. I just found that it looks like those 2 little buckets for $17.
17. Oh man, that's awesome. This stuff here has all the same properties as milliput, only it's a lot easier to work with. Gives them a real nice finish. Can be blended with any of the other putties we've discussed, and it's superb for organic sculpture as well as hard edge. But I use it quite sparingly because of the price. But also I use this for vehicles as well when I choose not to use milliput. Aves Epoxy Sculpt is actually one of my personal favourites. So sorry for forgetting about that one. I forgot about it last time too, didn't I?
Would you say it cures as hard as the milliput?
Yeah, definitely.
Really?
And you throw it in the oven for a little bit too, and you'll get that stuff running real hard. A good friend of mine, Carl Sederman, who's a former watch engineer for Rolex, who left that gig and has been sort of modelling and fine scale modelling and sculpting for years and years and years. He's responsible for a lot of the artillery pieces at 1/100 scale that Battlefront sell. I met him through Battlefront, and he was the one who first put me onto Aves Epoxy Sculpt and showed me some tricks of the trade. Also with the KY and the isopropyl alcohol works beautiful with it, and you can sand, file, shave that stuff. You can get such a mirror surface on it. It's amazing. So yeah, Aves Epoxy Sculpt, guys, don't forget it. If you can get your hands on it, especially for cheap, can't recommend it enough.
And it blends well with green stuff, you see.
Yeah, absolutely. It has a slightly sort of, if you're using a natural tone, it has a slightly translucent sort of look to it, but a real nice matte finish and photographs beautifully.
Right on.
So I think that's a wrap, mate.
Got anything else to say about sculpting materials?
Nah, we'll cover it in the next episodes.
Glue.
Glue?
Glue. Super glue.
Yep.
How important is super glue?
I use super glue on everything. I use super glue to glue weapons into place. I use super glue to fix armatures to metal bases. I use it for everything.
Same here.
It will deteriorate in vulcanizing process, in the mold making process, but you can trust that it's not going to deteriorate before that rubber's cured. Unless you've
most of the glue is going to be buried under green stuff by the time it gets in.
You find that super glue actually accelerates the curing process for green stuff as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it'll harden it real fast.
Yeah, hardens it real fast. So,
do you use rubber tools? Also, another question I was going to ask.
Yeah, well, I was hoping we'll do a whole episode on tools at some point. But yeah, I have a whole bunch of the clay shapers. You know, this little nibbed clay shapers.
Do you use the shit out of them?
I use one.
Which one?
So I've got like 5 or 6 in my toolbox, but this is the hard black nib.
Is it the round?
Yeah, it's round.
Round point? Yeah, I got that guy.
Yep, that's the exact same tool. It's got a nice hard nib as opposed to the lighter grey one, which has the softer nib. But I use that for skin sculpture. I use it for creasing cloth, folds, all that sort of stuff. Whereas I will use a shaved down jeweler's screwdriver as my main sculpting tool. You know, it's just a little jeweler's screwdriver that I've just filed and shaved and sanded, so I've got a nice sort of sharp but dull point, rounded point. I use a paddle, which is just a basically it's a little piece of steel hammered out with a hammer into a flat paddle shape. And then using a file, you take all the burrs off it and you get a nice rounded sort of finish to that.
I think I have that.
And my final tool is, something like that, mate. That'll be perfect. These are all handmade with bits of crap that I found lying around the house. But, you know, they've been with me for years and years, so they work perfectly. I have a bunch of these styluses. I'm just starting to use these more. Little ball styluses, different grades and sizes on each end. Just like those. But this is like my latest handmade masterpiece. It's a bit of dowel with another piece of steel bashed out into a slightly rectangular paddle on the end. You know, and a bit of hammer on the concrete, and you get a nice thing. And a sewing needle shoved in the end. And I use that for very fine detail.
Do you ever use like
eyelids and
a spoon shape?
Yeah, I've got all those, but I never use them. I've got. These are probably these.
This is like a tiny spoon shape I made. It's like a spoon, but it's little tiny. And I put that weird angle. Seems to help me.
I have a whole variety of clay rakes and things like that for using the very the oil-based clays and things. But I don't use them that often because I'm not sculpting with that.
I can imagine them being very useful in miniatures.
No, I did actually use them with the monster clay sculptures. Very fine ones, very fine bits of wire that I've fashioned and sort of wrapped up and made my own tools. You'd be amazed, mate. They're like the size of a needle. But yeah, I use mainly 4 tools, the same 4 tools for everything. And if I find something, don't get me wrong, mate, I've got about 200 different tools that I've collected or been given over the years. But it always comes down to the same 4, and they're all homemade, well, apart from the clay shaper.
Yeah, well, we could do a whole show.
Yeah, we'll cover that later on. But
what about wire? Do you have a bunch of different wire sizes that you use?
I used to, not so much anymore. I just get reels of the finest grade sort of household wire that you can get from the local hardware store. It's all stainless steel, so it's all good. A lot of people use brass wire and things like that. I used to use it, but this stuff I use is every bit as good and about 100 times cheaper. So,
I started with paper clips.
yep, I use paper clips for a number of things,
Yeah.
but not for the actual basic armature anymore. I use it as the core of a lot of weapons, or
Do you solder armatures?
no,
Twist?
twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way you're guaranteed it's not going to break, and you can set it into place with the first layer of putties and stuff anyway. So
Some of my earlier armatures were pretty accurate, but they were silly. I'd build the body with plasticard, basically.
oh, okay. Hey, that'll work for your RTV silicon casting.
Yeah.
But you'll be up shit creek without a paddle if you try and stick that in a vulcanizing mold.
The plastic?
Yeah, melt away on you, unless you're using low temp. We use a number of different grades of rubber, but I mean primarily our low temp rubber is this red stuff that we've got. That's made in Italy, but I source locally here through one of the rubber manufacturers here in New Zealand. But we also have the black organic rubber, which is it's higher temperature, it's cheaper, but it's your main production mold quality rubber that we use, whereas the master molds are used with the red rubber. So yeah, plasticard can be vulcanized, but you wouldn't want to be slapping that stuff into a black organic rubber mold, a high temp rubber mold, because
Do you ever make weapons with plasticard?
No, I don't.
No.
I'll make sheets of milliput and then etch them out and fold them down. That way I'm guaranteed that regardless of the rubber I'm using, I'm going to get the perfect cavity.
Yeah.
But Games Workshop guys all use plasticard. A lot of sculptors use plasticard to this day.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the sake of using plasticard, you can flatten out a piece of milliput and do exactly the same thing.
It files better, really.
Plasticard or
no milliput?
Milliput files beautifully. I mean, you can get such a nice shiny polish on that.
Because if you knead it up enough, there won't be a grain to it.
Yeah, no grain.
Some plastic cards you can file one way.
Yeah, it gets the hair, the fibers.
Yeah, you get these little fibers coming off of it.
And that gets stuck everywhere. It's a pain in the ass. So.
Yeah. It's got its uses, but milliput is better.
Yeah.
I've actually got some pre-cured sheets of milliput, little squares. They're already ready to go, if I need of different various thicknesses.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. That's all you need. That's all you need.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing with AIDS epoxy sculpt.
I gotta get some of that stuff.
You should, mate. It's awesome. But it does have a shelf life as well. So, make sure you keep it refrigerated, not under your sculpting bench.
Do you use the superfine white?
No. I've used it in the past. I don't find it as good.
Yeah. It's a nasty mess, too.
Yeah, it does. It leaves that residue on your fingers, and I find that because it's white, it's not so easy to discern the detail.
Right.
That master model needs the detail. If that's what you're taking your molds off, you need to be able to see what you sculpted. I need that sort of that depth perception. I don't get it with the white. I get it with the yellow grey.
All right, I'll ask you something you might want to cut out. I don't know if you want to talk about this on the show or not, but the gloaming stuff that you're doing,
yeah,
they look real yellow.
Yeah.
Are you using a higher amount
yeah,
of milliput?
I'm using it's probably about 60-40.
Yeah.
60% milliput on those, 40% green stuff. Just because I was experimenting initially with a number of different textures, the height.
Yeah, there's no smooth surfaces on
No.
it. That's what I noticed about all those sculpts. They stand out as different.
The hyper detail on those is, it's minuscule, but it covers every square millimeter of those figures.
Yeah.
But that's the gloaming. That's for Johnny Fraser Allen of Weta.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to bring that up or not.
Oh, yeah, I've got no problem bringing it up. I'm sure Johnny doesn't either. Johnny's he's a good friend of mine. And when the opportunity came for me to sort of realise his intellectual property at sort of 28mm, 30mm scale for the possibility, the prospect of tabletop gaming, I jumped at the chance.
Yeah.
But to do it justice in the scale that I've sculpted those at, I needed to make sure that I replicated his larger figures, the life-size exhibition pieces.
They're incredible. People got to check that out.
As I possibly could.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gloaming, guys. Johnny Fraser Allen, the gloaming trilogy. if you're a fan of the Dark Crystal, of the Labyrinth, but with a whole unique Johnny Fraser-Allen twist on it, and it's some of it's quite dark, but it's fascinating. It's a fascinating insight into this predominant Weta artist's twisted mind.
They're
love it.
They're like life-size sculptures, right?
The ones for the exhibition, yeah. His exhibitions have been around the world. I've been all over the show. He's got Sir Richard Taylor backing it up, and sort of he's put his sign seal of approval on it. And
with a series of books, he's like the
books are coming. They're not. I don't think last time I spoke with Johnny, they weren't ready yet. Which might as well catch up with him this week and sort of see where things are at.
Maybe we'll get him on here and find out.
Yeah, well, he's already said he'll come on for a Brotherhood of the Fly episode, so hopefully in the next few weeks, we've definitely one to sort of look forward to there. Mark on the calendars.
Right on, man.